In the beginning of the episode we see Eftel leads Anastasia deep beneath the mansion and into the underground treasury because he still hasn't retrieved his trusted sword. Anastasia feels a bit uneasy and asks if it's really alright for someone like her to enter the treasury. Eftel reassures her, saying there's nothing to worry about since Merlin already gave them permission, so everything will be fine. The two of them continue down the long corridor leading to the treasury. As soon as they arrive at the entrance, a mysterious lamp suddenly appears out of thin air. A moment later, it releases a giant red genie who immediately steps in front of them and declares that no one is permitted to go any farther. The genie stares at Eftel and Anastasia and assumes they're just a couple of thieves trying to steal the treasures. Eftel calmly explains that they're not thieves at all. He tells the genie that he's only come to retrieve his katana, Ryukiri. The instant the genie hears that, he flies into a rage. He insists that Ryukiri could never belong to Eftel because it's a legendary weapon that the famous Lightning Emperor brought back from the Demon King's castle. Hearing that name causes Eftel to recall his final battle with the Demon Lord. He remembers using Ryukiri to slice straight through the Demon Lord's level 10 lightning spell before defeating him. The genie assumes Eftel and Anastasia are simply two of Merlin's students who don't know any better. He orders them to leave at once and says he'll let them off with just a warning this time. Following Merlin's orders, no one other than the Lightning Emperor is allowed to enter the treasury. Eftel tries to tell him that he truly is the Lightning Emperor, but the genie refuses to believe him. Instead, he shouts right in Eftel's face so loudly that spit sprays all over him. Now full of confidence, the genie starts complaining about Merlin. He calls her an old hag for constantly ordering him around and making him guard the treasury every single day. He even insults the Lightning Emperor, calling him a fraud who never had any real talent for magic in the first place. The moment Eftel hears those words, his expression changes completely. With a cold look on his face, Eftel calmly asks the genie where Ryukiri is. The sudden pressure coming from Eftel immediately makes the genie nervous. The genie admits that Ryukiri is stored in the back of the treasury, but says it doesn't matter because the sword is sealed behind an incredibly powerful high-level protection spell that nobody can break. Ignoring the warning, Eftel quietly walks over to Ryukiri. Without speaking a single word, he casts a level 8 dispel spell with no incantation whatsoever. The protective barrier shatters instantly, releasing Ryukiri from its seal. As Eftel picks up the sword and holds it in his hand once more, the genie can do nothing but stare in utter disbelief. At that moment, Merlin suddenly appears, surrounded by an overwhelming aura. She says she could hear the genie calling her an old hag all the way from the other side of the mansion. Then she notices that Eftel has successfully reclaimed Ryukiri. Excited by what she sees, Merlin asks Eftel if he'll teach her how to use a sword someday. Eftel simply smiles and tells her he'll teach her when the time is right. As he watches everything unfold, the genie finally begins to put all the pieces together. No ordinary person could cast a level 8 dispel spell without using an incantation. That's when he finally realizes that the man standing before him really is the legendary Lightning Emperor. The genie immediately drops to his knees and sincerely apologizes to Eftel for the disrespectful way he treated him earlier. Eftel accepts the apology. He simply tells the genie that he and Anastasia will be living there from now on, so he should remember both of their faces. The genie quickly agrees and promises that he won't make the same mistake again. Even then, Merlin is still upset that the genie called her an old hag, and the two continue arguing back and forth. While they're busy bickering, Anastasia can't take her eyes off Ryukiri. Afterward, the group heads out for a walk through town. As they make their way down the streets, Eftel comments that the shops haven't changed very much. Even after the 400 years he was gone, Eftel says the shops still look the same. Merlin agrees before pointing to a nearby tailor shop. She tells them that's where she's having uniforms made for both Eftel and Anastasia. The three spend the rest of the day happily exploring the town. Once they've finished sightseeing, Merlin asks Eftel what he plans to do with the rest of the day. Just then, one of the waitresses suggests that, if he doesn't have any other plans, he should join the town's treasure hunt. Even Merlin hasn't heard of it before, so the waitress explains that a treasure hunt is taking place throughout the entire town, and whoever finds the most hidden treasures will be declared the winner. Everyone gets to keep whatever treasure they discover, and on top of that, the grand prize is a trip to the hot springs. As soon as they hear that, they decide to check it out. Merlin is immediately interested because the hot springs sound like an amazing reward. As they continue walking, Eftel suddenly notices that Anastasia has stopped. She's quietly staring at one of the treasure hunt posters with a look of genuine interest. Eftel and Merlin head back over to her and ask if she'd like to take part. Eftel can tell she really wants to join but is simply too shy to say it herself. Seeing that, he decides they'll all enter the treasure hunt together, bringing smiles to both Merlin and Anastasia. Anastasia, however, admits that she isn't interested in the hot springs at all. What she really wants is one of the treasure prizes. Merlin takes a closer look at the poster Anastasia was staring at and notices one of the reward dolls. She asks Anastasia why she wants that particular doll so much. Before Anastasia has a chance to answer, Eftel gently stops Merlin and tells Anastasia that she doesn't have to explain herself if she doesn't want to. After looking around, Eftel realizes that the organizers are using shape-shifting magic to disguise all of the treasure hunt items, making them impossible to find through ordinary means. Anastasia suggests using Perfect Dispel, just like he did back in the treasury. Merlin quickly points out that doing that would also erase countless other spells throughout the town that have nothing to do with the treasure hunt. Instead, Eftel comes up with a far better solution. Rather than dispelling every spell in the area, he'll interfere only with the magic of the person casting the shape-shifting spell. Merlin wonders whether it's even possible to cast a spell with that much precision. In response, Eftel activates his level 5 magic jammer. The spell works flawlessly. The hidden magic is disrupted, making it easy for them to spot every treasure hunt doll hidden across the town. By the end of the day, they've gathered enough treasures to win the entire competition, earning both the grand prize and the tickets to the hot springs. As they walk home together, Anastasia finally works up the courage to tell Eftel that the treasure hunt doll reminds her of him. Eftel simply smiles after hearing her say that. At the same time, Merlin finally realizes the real reason Anastasia wanted the doll so badly. Later that night, Eftel is quietly enjoying a cup of tea when Merlin walks into the room. She tells him there's something important she'd like to talk about. Merlin explains that she and Anastasia had just come back from the large public bath, and she had been curious about Anastasia because she wanted to know whether she'd be a suitable partner for Eftel in the bedroom. The moment Eftel hears that, he spits out his tea and immediately tells Merlin that he and Anastasia don't have that kind of relationship. Merlin insists that a first-rate man like Eftel deserves a first-rate woman by his side. Eftel responds by lightly tapping Merlin on the head and once again tells her there's nothing like that between him and Anastasia. Merlin accepts his answer, but then brings up something else she noticed. She tells Eftel that Anastasia has a special slave crest on her body. Because of that, she can't understand why Eftel is allowing Anastasia to stay by his side when he already knows about it. Keeping a calm expression, Eftel tells Merlin that he's known about the slave crest the entire time. Merlin reminds him that having someone with a slave crest nearby could become extremely dangerous, almost like carrying around a ticking time bomb. Before she can say anything else, Eftel suddenly slams his fist onto the table. He firmly tells Merlin that it was his decision, and he doesn't want to hear another word about the matter. Realizing it's a subject Eftel doesn't want to discuss any further, Merlin quietly agrees to drop it. The following day, Eftel arrives at the Magic Academy with Anastasia. The moment they step onto the school grounds, almost everyone turns to stare at him, wondering why a human from a lesser race is attending a school meant for demons. Anastasia quietly asks Eftel what's going on, and he explains that the academy was built specifically for demons, so seeing a human student there is incredibly unusual. Even so, Eftel has no intention of letting other people's prejudice stop him from studying magic. The two then make their way to their classroom. As soon as the other students realize Eftel is human, they begin questioning why someone from a lesser race was even allowed to enroll in the academy. A blonde girl named Maria walks over and asks how a human like him managed to get accepted into their school. Before Eftel has the chance to answer, the class's top student, Abe, speaks up. He tells Maria that Eftel is probably some important human who paid the admissions committee enough money to overlook the rules. Eftel finds the accusation a little awkward because Abe isn't entirely wrong. Abe then asks Eftel if he truly believes someone from a lesser race can keep up with the rest of the students. Eftel calmly replies that he'll simply do his best. Rather than calming Abe down, that answer only makes him even more upset. Abe tells Eftel not to underestimate everyone because they all know just how difficult the entrance exam was. Eftel decides not to argue and quietly takes his seat. A little while later, Maria walks over to him and apologizes for Abe's behavior. However, she admits that although she doesn't judge people by their race, she does judge them by their talent. Believes a human like Eftel could never compare to the other students when it comes to magic. Because of that, she tells him to stay out of everyone's way. After Maria walks away, Eftel quietly reflects on what she said. He knows she isn't completely wrong because demons are naturally more talented at using magic than humans. He thinks about Fraser and Anastasia, who both displayed incredible talent despite having very little training. Not long afterward, the first homeroom class begins. Merlin enters the classroom and announces that she, the dean of the academy, will personally be teaching their class. The entire room is left speechless. Everyone realizes how lucky they are to be taught directly by someone as famous as Merlin. Abe immediately assumes that Merlin must have heard about his incredible talent, which is why she chose to teach their class herself. However, Merlin bluntly tells him that she's never even heard of him. She then points directly at Eftel and tells the class that he's the real reason she decided to become their instructor. Eftel feels incredibly awkward because he hates being the center of attention. Abe is furious after finding out that Merlin only came to teach their class because of Eftel. He immediately assumes Eftel must be the son of some wealthy noble because that's the only explanation he can come up with. Disappointed by Abe's way of thinking, Merlin tells him that only third-rate magicians jump to conclusions like that. She then tells the entire class to watch Eftel closely because meeting him is the perfect opportunity to get rid of all their false assumptions about humans. Eftel lowers his head in disappointment, realizing that his dream of living a quiet school life has already been ruined. During the break, Abe and his friends surround Eftel and demand to know who he really is. Before Eftel can respond, Abe comes up with his own story. He claims Merlin is probably giving special treatment to human students and only pays attention to Eftel because she likes teaching handsome boys. Abe and his friends laugh as they call Eftel the old hag's favorite. The moment Eftel hears Merlin being insulted, his expression immediately changes. Calmly, Eftel tells Abe not to call Merlin an old hag. Abe is ready to start a fight, but Eftel quickly apologizes, preventing the situation from escalating. After they leave, Eftel hopes he can stay away from Abe from now on. Later that afternoon, Merlin tells the class that it's time to choose a student for the upcoming interclass battle. She asks for volunteers, and the moment Eftel hears that, he immediately hides under his desk, remembering what happened the last time he volunteered. When no one else says anything, Merlin walks toward Eftel, clearly intending to choose him. Before she gets the chance, Abe quickly volunteers himself. The class thinks he's the obvious choice since he's considered the Academy's best swordsman. However, Merlin immediately turns him down, saying he's not the right person for the job. Then Anastasia suddenly raises her hand. Eftel assumes she's volunteering herself, but instead, she shyly volunteers Eftel. Abe can't hide his manic grin, as watching Eftel receive all the attention only makes him angrier and angrier. That's it for today, like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.